August 11, 2018, I was admitted to the hospital and I was completely swollen. My head, neck, and shoulders were completely swollen, didn't know what was going on, thought it was allergies. We went to the doctor and they're like, oh, it's probably just allergies. Come Saturday, August 11th, went into to urgent care and we didn't know what was going on. So they ran a bunch of tests, ran some blood tests, they did a scan and they're like, oh my gosh, you have something in your chest. You need to go to Sharp Memorial and get a CT scan right now. Like,
right now.
Don't go home.
home.
And so we were like, okay, what's in my chest? And so we ran over to Sharp Memorial. They did a CT scan and they said, we need to admit you right now. Didn't know what was going on. A few days into it in the hospital, they scheduled a biopsy. So after the biopsy, the doctor came in and gave us the news, and she diagnosed me with mediastinal B-cell lymphoma, which is a fast-growing lymphoma. I had a tumor sitting on the top of my heart wrapped around one of my main arteries, and that's why I was swelling up, so the blood was pooling. And she said, you are a week away from a massive stroke. Mm-hmm. And then she gave me 30 days to live. You know, with all that, it's like you get this news, you get the book thrown at you, and the doctor, you know, I just sat up out of my hospital bed and I said, you know what, I'm sorry, I respect you as a doctor, I respect your position and what you know, but I refuse it, I cancel that in the name of Jesus, and I said, you watch my God do a miracle. And I don't remember the rest, the rest of what I said.
It was amazing. But we knew the promises of God. Something inside of us just rose up and we're like, no, like we do not choose death. We do not choose diagnosis. We refuse this and we do not claim it. So we started just going after it. We started warfaring in the spirit, praying in tongues, worshiping. Worship was constantly playing 24/7, no matter what. We had pastors coming in doing deliverance, praying healing over him. We had friends coming in doing the same. So really, once we decided on going through with the chemotherapy, when we got that confirmation, you know, the doctor explained to us what that would look like. It was 8 rounds. Each round was 6 solid days of chemotherapy being pumped into his system. He had a chest port installed, and it was really intense. And I left my job to be able to care for him full time.
So after the 3rd round of chemo, I had a scan coming up, and so I was fortunate enough to be able to come into church. Pastor John pulled me up on stage during the Book of Miracles. And the whole church was going at it. The whole church had their arms stretched out. Everyone was praying.
So powerful.
I was just crying. I was a hot mess. And I felt warmth all through my body. And I knew my healing was coming. I knew my healing was happening. So a few days after the church service, we had a PET scan. After my 6th and final round of chemo, I had another PET scan on my chest. And this was the final PET scan, and this was right before Christmas, and I'm like, God, this thing is gone. So I was believing for that call on Christmas. The doctor was like, you know what, if I get the results back in time, we'll call you even on Christmas. I'm like, yes, please. Wait around Christmas to call for Christmas didn't come, but the day after Christmas came, and she said, you are healed of cancer. Your cancer is gone.
There's nothing there.
She couldn't believe it. In fact, the radiologist, I was supposed to have radiation done on my chest as well, and the radiologist came in and she actually wanted to meet with me.
Just to meet with him.
Schedule a meeting just to meet with me because of how miraculous this was, and this completely blew their minds.
We saw a miracle, and nobody can tell us otherwise because God is good and God was in it, and we saw so many facets of the beauty and the goodness of our God. And
man, I'm a hot mess. If it wasn't for Awaken Church, I wouldn't be sitting here today. And that is just our leaders, the power of God, and just this community is incredible. So thank you.
And we just want to say thank you for letting us talk about our testimony and share the goodness of God. And we're so honored and we're so grateful. So yeah, we love you guys.
Thank you.
Mother's Day of 2015, my sister invited me to come, and there was a 7-year-old that prayed on stage. And when I saw that, I knew this is where I want to raise my future family. And my now husband and I got married a few months after that, and then we both made this our church home, and we started coming as a big family with my sister and her husband.
So my husband Jason and I started going to Awaken Church way back at Carmel Valley Middle. In the midst of attending Awaken Church, we were in the depths of infertility. We struggled with infertility. We had 2 losses. During that time, I faithfully served in Bubs in Kids Church. I always like to say I served the smallest. And I really felt a passion about sowing into that generation. Yeah. I knew that I needed to sow where I wanted to reap my harvest.
I totally remember being in that season with you, and I couldn't imagine not having you there, because then when we decided it was time to start a family, we had also began our infertility journey, and we had 3 losses before our miracle baby girl, and our mom had had a miscarriage before me. So I had gone in for a deliverance session, and I knew at that point things had shifted, that there was going to be a change in our journey.
We were really feeling a stirring in the spirit as well. And over the years, we had received multiple prophecies, multiple dreams. And we're talking about 11 years of reminding. And around this same season, I would say beginning of February 2018, we really started to feel this stirring in the spirit that our breakthrough was coming and our breakthrough was coming. And Jason went to Emerge, and he was on Warner Peters' team. Shout out to the Peters. At the end of one of the sessions, they had gone down to the altar to pray, and they were about to head back to their seats because the speaker came back on stage, and Warner said, "No, stay. And Warner, thank you for being so faithful to that prompting that God put on your heart to pray for my husband, because in that moment, Warner told Jason, you need to call down your baby right now. And he battled with my husband, battled in the spirit, and they called down our baby. 9 days later, I found out I was pregnant.
Through that, we had found out 3 weeks later that we were pregnant, and not knowing that that little one was going to be with Jesus. Jenny and I were just 3 weeks apart. We were both due in December of 2018. When we had lost, it had kind of put a strain on our relationship because we saw the promise that Jenny was walking through, and we knew her miracle was incredible, and we wanted to be happy, but we were still in the depths of our journey and not sure how to navigate. And so it took a lot of prayer and a little bit of time.
So in December of 2018, we met our sweet girl, Kira, and she is a ball of energy in all of her curly-headed glory.
And September 1st of 2018, I found out I was pregnant with baby Rylan, Rai, or Chicken Nugget, as a lot of you guys know her. It was incredible to see that redemption that God had put in, like I had said, the reconciliation of our family. So we were so excited to announce to our family, and that started the healing and brought Jenny and I so much closer because we had been through the depths of it together, and now we were able to celebrate the highs, the mountaintops together.
We're so happy that not only we have our girls, but that we have the opportunity to share with others the encouragement of the testimony, the faithfulness of God.
And I think Jenny and I clung to prayer this entire time, and to God, knowing that we were not going to go through this and let it be silent. We were not going to hide this, that this miracle and this testimony, even in the middle of it, when we got our miracle, because we knew we were going to get our miracles, that it was going to be an opportunity to show everyone God's light, and to be able to share, look what God can do. He did it for us. He can do it for you.
If he can do it for me, if he can do it for me after 11 years, come on. Like, I'm that girl. and he did it. He did it. God did it.
And he definitely refined us in the process so that we could be the moms that we are now. And the wives that we are, and the sisters that we are now.
I love you.
Love you.
We moved to San Diego and to Awaken Church about 2 years ago from Sydney, Australia. We've been married for almost 13 years. And we brought a lot of baggage into our marriage, and did a lot of work beforehand, and then coming to Awaken Church, coming here, God just did so much work in our lives.
I had been suffering with an eating disorder for 10 years.
Yeah, and I had a porn addiction from the age of 13, and so something that never wanted to bring into a marriage, but it was something that we dealt with very early on in our relationship.
So we kind of made a mess of it and worked really hard on trying to move forward and get through that. And then 10 years later, there was a huge shift in our lives where we decided we would move to San Diego. We were both very broken, and we had a lot to unpack still in our marriage, and I really felt like what we had already been through were really just symptoms of some deeper issues and some things that we really need to work out. And when we got to San Diego, it just felt like we could breathe and that we were finally in a place where we felt safe, and there was an effective environment for healing and just restoration. It felt, there was hope. Honestly, there was hope for the first time in my heart that we were actually going to succeed in our marriage and not just survive, because it had sort of felt like we were in survival mode up until that point, which is a long time to feel that way. And honestly, the people in this church and the environment, the connections, the way people are so authentic with you and willing to unpack things with you and walk things out with you and pray through things. Honestly, it was a breath of fresh air. I'd never really experienced that before, and so it was very conductive to our healing and restoration in our marriage. I let go of 10 years of resentment towards Chad. So much healing.
We were able to really be healed in so many different things, to go on the altar, to get deliverance on so many different items as well in our lives, and then to just rejoice in the freedom that we have now and the fantastic relationships that we have being a part of Awaken Church. And I mean, we are super excited about the future and where we're headed. And it's not always easy. It's not like we never fight anymore or anything like that. You know, we're just growing every single day in our marriage and really getting a revelation of who God has called us to be. So I'm excited about the future.
Me too.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
High five.
In December of 2016, I was diagnosed with Lynch syndrome. I remember going to the doctor's office and sitting in her office, and even how cold the chair was, and just waiting for the doctor to come in and tell me what was gonna happen in my life. And I remember her sitting down and looking at me and saying, "Candy, you did test positive for this. So what this means is that you have a 50% chance of developing cancer in your life. I know that you're 26-year-old. You need to think about having kids. Have you thought about having kids right now? Because what happens with this is your cells can't fight the cancer cells. So even if we were to catch this cancer early on, more than likely it would come back, just like it's come back with your mom and with several members of your family." And so I sat there as this 26-year-old girl thinking, why do I have to make these life choices right now? How can I tell this to my family? I don't want to put that burden on them. And so she recommended not to tell anyone. So that's what I did. I kept it all to myself. I didn't tell a single soul. The days grew longer, and I remember just hearing this voice in my head telling me every single night, "You should kill yourself. You should kill yourself. Why would you put your family through those things, through those emotions? Why would you do that to them? It'll be easier if you kill yourself." I just kept letting these voices creep in and creep in. And so after a while, I decided I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna go ahead and kill myself. So during my lunch break, I wrote the note. I wrote a goodbye note to my parents telling them why I was doing what I was gonna do. And I put the note away, and I remember, okay, after work, I'm just gonna drive to a bridge and I'm just gonna jump off. And as I was looking for a bridge, I got a reminder email on my phone that the new DNA class, the lead class, is coming up, so don't forget, it's tonight. And so I took it as a sign, like, okay, God, you're saying something, so I'm gonna go in and I'm going to see what this is about, because this is the last chance that I'm giving you, and you gotta show up, dude, because I can't do this by myself. And the moment that I walked in through those doors, I just felt peace, a peace that I had never felt in my life. It was this peace that made that voice that would tell me every night to kill myself. It finally was quiet. So then following Sunday, I get involved with the youth ministry. I get planted. I meet people that are some of my really good friends now. 2 years go by and I just see God doing his work and doing what he does and just giving me a new heart, a heart of flesh. During the internship, he healed cancer, 3 to 4 cancers in my family. And now I can absolutely tell you that I'm free. I'm happier than I've ever been. I don't hear those voices in my head anymore. I've never thought of killing myself after that point. And I just live this life where I know who I am, whose I am, and I'm so happy. And all of this because God found me and he met me there.
We've been a part of Awaken Church for 10 plus years now. We met serving in Connect Group together.
We got married at the age of 35 and basically started trying to have children from day one. After each month of no success, it definitely became emotionally draining on us.
Yeah, we didn't know what to do. So we reached out to the doctors and went and did some tests and you know, why they didn't really have anything to point to specifically. You know, they say that because of your age, it could be increasingly more difficult to get pregnant as the years go on, or sometimes we just don't know why it doesn't happen. And you know, we felt like that word just put a lot of like fear and worry on us, but we decided that this is an opportunity for God to move in our lives. We actually saw like our Connect group coming around us. We had, you know, our leaders that we serve under coming around us, our amazing like campus pastors, and just really showing up and caring in our life in those moments. And for both of us, like we don't have family like close. Like every time we talk to family, it's on the phone, it's on FaceTime, you know. So I think it's powerful just to have people around and not be isolated and just fall into a trap of just a bad place.
And we decided to try our first round of doctor assistance. Unfortunately, that was unsuccessful.
We decided that, you know, this wasn't going to take us out, that, you know, in those tough moments, we knew that God is for us, that he's the God of miracles, that he has a desire to bless his children with good things.
Yeah, so we decided to do our second round with doctor assistance. We were praying over the womb, prophesying, declaring scripture.
A few weeks go by and we get a phone call and
yeah, I mean, I could barely get the words out, crying happy tears on the phone to Anthony, but I did let him know that we were expecting our miracle baby boy. And we couldn't be more excited to see our miracle baby boy come to pass, believing, pressing in, seeing our church leaders come around us, praying with us, lifting up our hands when our faith couldn't go there anymore.
So excited for this little boy, this little miracle, this little bundle of muscle that's sitting in here. So overjoyed. It just really hit our hearts, like the goodness of God, because it really was like the desires of our heart, like it was in there, and we just knew, like, you know, painful or not, that this is awesome, that God's good.
So let us encourage you, church, today. Believe in good things. Believe that God has that miracle out there, whether you're believing for a spouse, believing for your child to come back to Christ, believing for that miracle baby boy or baby girl. Psalm 84:11 says, "No good thing will he withhold from those who walk uprightly." So I promise you, church, keep believing for those miracles and you will see them come to pass.
Hi, I'm Jim O'Connor, and I attend the East Lake campus of Awaken Church here in San Diego. And this healing story, starts about 3 or 4 years ago when I had surgery on my right knee. Subsequent to the surgery, my knee was just in a lot of pain, and the doctor, through x-rays and CAT scans and MRIs, said obviously that I need to have surgery, and he went in and did some work on the meniscus, found that there really wasn't much cartilage left in my right knee. He smoothed the bone down a little bit, but after surgery, he said that I will probably be living in moderate to severe pain in my knee for some period of time until I ultimately get a knee replacement. And so after about 2 years or so, in fact, going back just 8 or 9 months ago, I was getting really excited about our family. We were going on the Israel trip with the church. And right around August 1st or so, we were 3 weeks out from going on this trip. And yet I was starting to feel anxious, worried, and sort of sad and depressed about my knee, knowing that if I do any walking, any hiking, any sightseeing, the pain of it would just be so severe, and it would obviously compromise the joy of the trip. And so I was praying to God, and I just prayed, God, just do something, help my knee out here a little bit. And then I remember very distinctly Sunday, August 4th, the 10 a.m. service. We had a guest pastor in, Pastor John Pierce from Australia, and he was introduced, and as he went up onto the stage, he said, I have a word, I have a healing word for you all. And he's speaking to all of us in the sanctuary, and he said, does anybody in the service have any pain in their knee, specifically their right knee? And my wife turned her head and looked directly at me, and he said, I'd like you to come up on stage. And so actually, not only did I go up on stage, but about 8 or 9 people went up on stage as well. And he laid hands on us, prayed for our knee, prayed for recovery, prayed for healing. And I didn't feel anything at that moment. I didn't feel like this energy source. I didn't feel a boom, happening on my knee or anything like that. And so he finished the prayer, went down and sat down, and he was maybe 15 or 20 minutes or so into his preaching. And I looked over at my wife and I said, I actually don't feel anything in my knee right now. And she looked at me with some surprise. And after the service, I went up to Pastor John Pierce and I just said, I just want you to know, I don't feel any pain in my knee right now. And it's been about 2.5 years since my surgery, since I have not felt any pain. And that was 8.5 months ago. And then we went on the trip to Israel. I had no pain in my knee. It was completely gone. And here we are about 8 months later in 2020. And to this day, there hasn't been a 24-hour period that has gone by where I have felt even the slightest soreness, tenderness, pain in my knee. It was a complete, utter healing of any pain, any discomfort in my knee. And so I only have God to thank for that. So what a miracle. So that's my story.
My name is Justine De Dios, and I'm an events intern at Awaken Church. I've been going to Awaken since December of 2015. I was only a Sunday Christian back then, but I was also serving in the United States Navy. When I was about to get out of the Navy, that's when I think God started transforming my life. I was actually a failed abortion. My mom and my dad already had one daughter and one boy. I happened to be an accident, so my mom started taking medications for me, but through a series of miracles, I pushed through. And before I joined the Navy, she passed away. And that added another grief into my life. Because of that, I ended up having a lot of stress in my military career, anxiety because of it too, and depression as well on top of all of it. After having multiple psych ward admissions, I ended up getting diagnosed with bipolar disorder too. And my doctors told me that I will be on medications and therapy for the rest of my life so that I can keep my sanity. So I held on to that diagnosis for a long time. But Freedom Night was happening here March 4, 2019, and my mom's death anniversary was March 5th. So I was really, really dreading that day, but I still went and pushed through the Freedom Night. And I went to the altar to get my freedom, and Pastor Becky prayed for me. She casted out everything that the enemy took away from me. And then from then on out, it was just like a series of restoration in my life. The next day, I thought I was gonna be dreading it because it's my mother's death anniversary. But that was the first time that I actually experienced the peace that surpasses understanding. So I stopped taking my medications. I flushed it down the toilet. From then on out, I haven't taken any medications, not even single bit for anxiety. Now I don't have to depend on therapy or medications just to keep my sanity, just to keep the peace that I have in my life. And I used to suffer bipolar disorder, but now I'm so excited that because of Awaken Church And because of the Freedom Night, I am not suffering from any mental health disorders, from bipolar disorder, anxiety, depression, suicide ideations. I am now free because of the church and the community that this church has had to offer to me.
Hello, my name is Enrique. I've been coming to Awaken Church for about 4 years. Actually, I got to Awaken Church through an Instagram post. It was during the time when I had hit rock bottom and I didn't know where to turn. Since I was a little boy, the enemy always attacked me with my sexual identity. It was not until I actually had an encounter with God that he told me who I was. But during this process, the enemy started putting things in my head of performing arts, which I've always loved. And I started performing in drag shows, and it was really good money. I was traveling, people started getting to know me, but people started to getting to know the alter ego of me, someone that it was on stage, but inside I was so empty, I was so broken, until I got to Awaken Church, and people love me, people care for me. No one ever asked me about my identity, no one ever asked me about my past. It was God's timing that little by little, he started revealing things to me. During this process, I got baptized and I was still performing, but after a while, there was something inside of me telling me that that's not who God created me to be. After a while, I left everything behind, but I asked God, you take this desire from me because I love performing, I love being on stage. And after a while, after I stopped doing it, God took that desire from me, and I don't miss it anymore. Since coming to Awaken Church, I started realizing that there was so many talents that I had inside of me. Talents of creativity. I'm starting a clothing business. I'm writing a book. I'm surrounding myself with people who see the gold inside of me. I love being part of a church who loves me, who accepts me, and encouraged me to be the best me that I can ever be.
We met each other in Kansas City. That's where we grew up. Went to high school together. After graduation, we parted ways, got back together again after a few years and got married, started having children. And like most marriages, challenges started to set in. You know, I was a young entrepreneur, felt the pressure of being a provider, a husband, and a father. And so I dealt with a lot of that pressure through, alcohol and relationships outside of our marriage. And, she was a working mother, and, she suffered from anxiety and depression. And I remember there were days where, you didn't even get out of bed.
After that, all of that came to light, we wanted to unify our family even more. And so something kind of called us to San Diego. And so we sold everything. We packed up what we had. We packed up our 5 kids and we went across the country to San Diego. And then we really didn't even know what we were searching for. But when we were here, we knew we needed something else. Something was missing in our lives. And so we came into Awaken Church and we just felt the presence of God like there's never been before. It was kind of funny though, because he came from a Catholic family, so we've never been in a situation where people were raising their hands and like shouting down, the pastor and jumping up and down and praising God.
I thought it was funny.
We were like literally laughing at our first church service at people, and I feel bad about it now.
That kept us coming back.
It did. And there was just something, every time we would come back, things kept breaking off. Like old ways of thinking would break off, and then he would be like, whoa, what was that about? And I was like, I don't know. Let's ask more questions. Let's go to men's prayer.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you went to men's prayer, everything shifted. It
started to shift, yeah. Like I took authority over the house.
Yeah.
Got the idea of getting baptized. It was like, oh, water baptism.
And this was a year after we started going to Awaken Church. So it took us a really long time of sitting in this space of the good soil to really start moving forward. But once we did, man, it was like fast forward, full speed ahead, you know.
Yeah.
Things changed, things shifted, you know, putting God like in the center. When we got baptized, putting God in the center did something for a relationship that nothing else could do.
I think in the end, like, I didn't know God was that good.
Yeah. I feel like his grace, God's perfect love, like infused itself in my soul. And then I was able to pour it out onto you and give you the forgiveness that you deserved as a child of God. I'm so excited about our future. And I know that tomorrow is going to be even greater than today. And like, I just can't believe like all the blessings that he's bestowed upon our families in the past year. It's been really incredible. And I'm just so excited for the future with you.
It sounds cliche, man, but it's like I love you more every day. So it truly. So, and it's God's gift, and God's gift of forgiveness and grace, and yours too.
Finding Awaken Church was paramount for me. I mean, for the longest time, from what I can remember, I had a desire to be wanted, a desire to be needed, and I found that in drugs, in alcohol, in substances, in other pleasures. I realized over time after coming to the church is that the circles and the people that I was hanging out with, the life that I was living, I wasn't being accepted for really who I was. I was being accepted and filled in and brought into a circle for the things that I had, whether that would have been beer, whether that had been alcohol, like liquor, whether that had been drugs. And, you know, there was an empty feeling in that. There was a really empty feeling in my life because I was trying to fill gaps and holes with something that was very just temporal. My wife was going here before I did. We had met outside, but she had brought me into this church, and I immediately just had an awakening to never knowing that there was even a church like this before. After being in this church for this amount of time, seeing the genuine people and getting so many new friends and expanding the groups and the circles of people that my wife and I associate with, I see what true friendship is. I see that when I see people that accept me for who I am, that I can be transparent with, that I can be vulnerable with, that I can let hold me accountable. And that's the most important thing, because now I have, I think, the realness that God wants for me to fill those needs and fill those gaps through a community and through the church. And to be able to have that in my life is paramount for my recovery. And it's crazy even thinking about today. Today's is actually the due date of my wife and I, our first child. And to know that because of the decisions I'm making now to make the change and to really press in, my child will never have to see the dysfunction that I lived in previously. And that's something that's powerful. That's something that gives me great joy, that he's never gonna have to experience the struggles that I had to experience, at least from my hand. I know that I can put the best foot forward every single day for my wife, for my family, for my soon-to-be baby boy coming into this world. And I'm just excited so much to continue on growing every single day in this church, but also just with my friends and my family in recovery as well.
In January of 2017, our marriage was failing, fake. Everything was snowballing, destroyed. It was like a big word vomit coming out, like it was not healthy. But then I stopped and I was like, no, like God gave me this word to keep pushing forward and to have stronger faith than ever. And so I literally would make, every time my little girl would go down for nap or for bed, I would take the time and just pray for my husband to come back to God, to be the man of God that we want him to be. And I think we kind of came back together like hoping that it would just like mesh, but we still didn't have the community. We still didn't have a church. We still didn't have God in the middle. And I think that's where 2017 Like when he got home was still hard. We still had our moments, we still had our fights. And then in November, his family was home, or his family was out here for Thanksgiving, and they're like, hey, we know the Deuce, like they go to church C3, like, do you guys want to come? And I was like, yes, please, like sign me up. And he was having to go away again, so I went with our little girl. And when I parked and like walked in, I just knew that this is where God had called me to be. And then 2 Sundays later, I woke him up and I was like, you're going to church. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, yes, you are. Short end of the story, he went to church, and he just started breaking down. And it was probably the most powerful thing for me to see God at work in him. That's when all of my prayers, all of the fight that I had to put in 2017 kind of came out, where I could see it like starting to break him down and soften his heart.
I think it was one Sunday after I arrived, I think it was the following Sunday, we saw the video for Emerge, and she asked me if I wanted to go to Emerge, and I said, I don't think so. Like, that's not something I'm gonna do. So I was supposed to be gone, I was supposed to be doing some more training, and I show up to work Monday morning, the next day, and they're like, hey, we have this job that we need you to do. You're essentially gonna be non-deployable for 2 years. So the next Sunday, she goes, hey, so you're gonna go to Emerge now? And I was like, yes, I will go to Emerge now because I have nothing going on. I went to Emerge, and it truly changed my life. I rededicated my life to the Lord. I got baptized. Then we got baptized together as like a renewal, a restart of our marriage. And then June 3rd, I called Samuel Duth, and I asked him, I said, will you renew our vows for us on the beach? It's gonna be a surprise. Mariah doesn't know about it. It'll be for our 9-year wedding anniversary. He said, sure. And in less than 48 hours, they had set up this beautiful wedding.
I had dreamed and prayed in 2017 for this day to come, but I never voiced it to him because I'm like, there's no point. But God knows the desires of my heart and met the desires of my heart that night.
And that's really what the church is all about, is community. Vision Builders was shortly afterwards. We had a number and it was crazy, but we realized that the heart and the community of this church is something that we want to continue to pour in, not only with our personal time by volunteering, but our money. It's God's money anyways. So why would I want to invest in the people around me? I want other people to have the same experience that I had coming to this church. If this church wasn't around, I can probably tell you that I wouldn't be here right now.
I came to C3 about 10 years ago in the North Campus in Carlsbad, and during that period of time I had a showroom, and that's where I met this gentleman that came into my store, and we started talking personal experiences during that time, and he was sharing with me about his mom that was a Christian, and I just asked God, I said, just give me something to say to him to really open his heart. And I said, hey Brad, you really need to hear this service. It's alive, it's real, it's funny, and there's a lot of power in this church. And he actually came with my daughter and myself to C3 Church, and I knew with all my heart that he had a calling in his life to do something really special.
That invite has changed my entire life. From the person I'm gonna marry to the purpose that I have in life. And so back then it was, so nervous to come and I was shaking, but just knew something about this place was different. The rest is history. There I fell in love, and so now I'm down here at our central campus overseeing the youth ministry, and it's just been a phenomenal ride. It's like, to think back, if you never would have invited me, where would my life be? And I was so radically impacted that I just wanted to have everybody come, and especially the people that I love the most.
So Brad actually one day called me up when I was driving home from work and said, hey, I signed you up to go to this men's conference. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go, And I went, and I just got rocked.
Because of the shift that I actually started seeing in Nate and then in you as well, Bradley, I wanted the same thing. So We actually got married in November of 2014. And it was on our honeymoon. We were in beautiful Puerto Rico, and we were sitting out on the balcony overlooking the ocean. And I just sat there and looked at Nate and was like, there's gotta be so much more to life than just the way that we're living. And we decided right then and there that when we came home from our honeymoon, we were gonna go back to the church and just go 100% and all in.
Yeah, and what's interesting about an invite was that because of you guys, then our lives started changing, and so we started to just invite everybody that we knew, and one of those people was our good friend Luke.
Yeah, and he started inviting all these people from work, and actually invited a guy that's one of my really close friends now.
And I still remember when Luke came back from Emerge Conference of 2015, he got just completely rocked, and so he decided to shoot me an invite to church, and for a month I told him no. And then finally, on Palm Sunday of 2015, I decided to come. But I remember I showed up here for a 5 p.m. service, and for the first time in my life, I actually felt like it was the place I was supposed to. I felt like I belonged. I felt like, and it was the first time I ever heard the gospel.
Probably about 3 years ago now, I knew that I was meant to do the internship, and so I said, okay, God, I'm gonna do it. I decided to say yes, and thank God I did, because that's where I met Alex. We actually started running, co-leading a Connect group with a couple of our closest friends, and we hit it off, and the rest is history. We got married a year later, and we've been serving alongside each other ever since.
Yeah, and how crazy is it that from one invite, you guys are now married, you oversee our pathways and welcome team. You guys are overseeing our youth ministry now up at North Campus in the kids' church. I oversee our youth ministry here at Central and teach in Bible college, and all from one invite.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I think I can probably speak on behalf of all of us how thankful we are for everyone who's sown in to Vision Builders, everyone who's tithed, who's put an offering in, because without that, we wouldn't have even had a place to come to. And so now seeing our lives transform, seeing people we've brought, and then even generations to come. And we're just some of many stories, and many stories to come.
My name is Darren, this is Gina, and we're the Thebathasans. We were absolutely blessed. That was God's plan for us to move to San Diego shortly after my daughter's 1-year birthday. One of the very top things, if not the top thing on the list, was to find a church home. So after getting plugged in here at C3, we quickly found a Connect group and started doing life with people that we would see week in and week out. One of the amazing things that we found with our Connect group is that we are really able to be transparent and talk about the good stuff, the bad stuff, and the not so good stuff.
When I was 8 months pregnant, I was diagnosed with a life-threatening heart condition. So I had a 25 to 50% chance of dying during delivery and 72 hours post. But by God's grace, I was fine and our daughter was fine, but I was told that I couldn't bear any more children.
We made a decision that we wanted to grow our family, but given what Gina just shared about the challenges that we had, we felt that God put it on our heart to go down the road of adoption. Through learning about adoption, we knew that it would be a long, arduous process. But our Connect group stepped in, and equipped us with prayer, discernment, and just support all the way around through this process.
They were there through each step of the way. We found out the baby had 2 holes in his heart. We all prayed for healing. During the process, the baby was healed. Before we left for our journey to India to get him, they threw us the most beautiful baby shower and just showered him with gifts and prayer. So I just don't know how we would have gotten through all this without what we consider now our San Diego family, because we didn't have any family in San Diego once we moved here.
They really have been that for us and unconditionally supported us, unconditionally provided us with prayer. So we are very, very fortunate that we've been able to grow in our Connect journey here, from starting to be in a Connect group to now leading a Connect group, and to really praying in and supporting others as well.
We had always talked about eventually moving north to be close to family, and a lot of our close friends were up there that we had served with and young adults. And so when we became a part of the launch team at South,
yeah, and I think, we'd said that kind of what we'd made up in our mind was we're going to help South get into a building, and once they get into a building,
we'll move.
We'll head back north or whatever.
Yeah, but in that year time and realizing it's really hard to build community when you're not in the community. And we began to fall in love with the community down here. And it was a couple years in when God really started stirring my heart first that if we were gonna be down here, we should take ground and really go for a home and believe for a home.
Yeah, so we just in faith broke our lease at our apartment, found somebody to come in and sublease from us, and actually moved in with Katie's parents so that we could save money, and stayed with them for about a year while we were building our house. And so we were commuting down, and after we'd stayed there only a couple months, I think, when we decided that we wanted to build this house in this community here in Chula Vista. And so we put down this $5,000 earnest money deposit to like reserve our lot and have them kind of start building the house. And it was not easy. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers, I'm like, we don't have the down payment, we don't have the income, but we just believed in faith and made this commitment to get this house.
I think when God gives you a vision, the middle is not the part that's illuminated, it's the end. And it was definitely the most challenging season I think that we've gone through. We really had to work through that tension of what we were looking at numbers-wise versus what God had asked to step out in. And Pastor Jurgen has taught us that to push, and that there's going to be resistance, but that it's worth it. And we really experienced that in all of the best ways.
So we were, at the beginning of 2018, we're expecting a pretty big bonus check from my job that was gonna really carry the rest of the way to the down payment, and found out that that actually wasn't gonna happen at all, and we weren't gonna get any of that bonus money. And it was
hard.
Yes, it was a absolute blow to us. We didn't really have any other way of sort of making up this gap to get the down payment together. But at the time we still had I think about $4,000 left on our 2017-2018 Vision Builders commitment. And at this point, like I'm looking at the calendar, I'm like seeing the close date get closer and closer, and seeing the bank account, and just like every dollar matters. Like, and the idea of giving away this $4,000 to fulfill our pledge was just like,
it almost felt foolish.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we just knew that God spoke to both of us independently about doing that, and so we said, okay, let's do it and trust God and believe. And so we sowed that last $4,000, and it was so crazy. I mean, after we fulfilled that commitment, it was like
so many opportunities.
Yes, like the floodgates just opened, and in those few months leading up to closing, we made more money than we've ever made, like orders of magnitude more. And not only were we able to like get the down payment together, we were able to furnish our entire place. We're able to just move into this new season like in abundance and just really taking ground here in Chula Vista.
It's true. I love how God unfolded our story, because we're surrounded by the evidence of a promise, but also the fulfillment of a vision that has really catapulted us into a new authority and a new way to really be a part of South Bay in a way that's really special.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing is it wasn't like we just were able to get this house and that was kind of the end of the story. It's really, as Katie said, it's really catapulted us into believing even bigger. And so now our Vision Builders commitment for 2018-2019 is a little over 3 times bigger than last year's commitment. A couple $1,000 shy of fulfilling this year's, and going to do that this week. And just miracle after miracle after miracle. So it's been a wild ride.
Yeah.
My name is Tim Runyon, and this is my beautiful wife, Kristen Runyon, and we are the Runyon family. And we've been going to C3 now for 2 years.
2 years, yep. I first found out about C3 by being invited to Hero in 2016. And as soon as I came to Hero, I thought, this is a church that I want to know more about. I started bringing Anna, my teenage daughter, and that's where she had a pretty powerful encounter with Jesus.
My freshman year of high school, the whole family moved out here from Iowa, and going into high school not knowing anyone was really hard. And I didn't really remember a time when I knew who I was. I'd been in therapy since I was 3. I didn't sleep. I really couldn't eat. My last 2 weeks of my freshman year, I was actually in a hospital because my depression had gotten so bad that I didn't really see a reason to be here anymore. My mom told me to come to a Sunday service, and so I did, and they showed a promotional video for the My City Summer Camp for 2016. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do, that looked so fun. And so the Friday before, I went to my city for the very first time, and Ashley Robbins told me to come to the 5, and David Chittick preached, and then I got prayed over, and I got saved, and then the next day I went to summer camp, and it was one of the best weeks of my life, and I got so much closer to God, and I really found who I was. And school's just kind of changed now because it wasn't a great place for me before, but now I go in and I know people, and I've actually started Thursday morning prayer group for the school, and it's just a place that I like to be now. I look back and I don't really remember the past 16 years because I found so much healing in the past 2 years at C3 than I have in the 13 years of therapy before that.
And then I got involved through the Emerge men's conference, and I was just new to the church, and I was really kind of on the fence about it. And the minute I got there, the guys made me feel incredibly welcome. I knew no one, and I can't wait to go back.
Yeah, when Tim came home from Emerge, I had been trying to get him to go to church, and not pressing too hard, but trying to get him to go. When he came home from Emerge, he goes, "Okay, so I'm going to start ushering." Okay. And he's been a 10 o'clock usher ever since. And then Natalie our youngest daughter, came to Twisted in 2017.
My family, when they started coming to church, I felt super isolated and alone because I couldn't understand how all of these people could have this blind faith in something that I didn't believe was real. And so I saw Twisted in 2016, and I liked it, but I didn't really connect with it. I just was like, oh, it's like a cool show that we do. And so when 2017 came along, I was like, I want to go. And so I saw 3 shows, and I connected with the story much more than I had the year before. So when it came time for you to raise your hand if you wanted to come back to God, I raised my hand, and it ignited my love with the church, and I couldn't imagine this 4 months ago happening to me. It's just been the best time of my life. And now I wake up every morning and I text friends from Alliance, and I text them Bible verses, and I can just see this transformation happening in their lives, and I can see that I'm actually making a difference in what I'm doing. And I realized how much power that I have when I have God on my side.
When it came around time for Vision Builder, again, I was still relatively new in the church. It came time to come up with a pledge number, and we knew that Kristen's company was going to be selling that year.
And so the number that we came up with is we said, well, we'll give 10% of what the company is expected to sell at. And then when the company did sell, it sold for far less than what we expected.
Yes.
And so that original 10% pledge actually turned out to be more of a 25% pledge. But we said, nope, we're still in. We're going to fulfill this pledge. So the first thing that we did is we gave first fruits right off of that first check. One of the things that we had been praying for was a house. I went to the Empower conference, and Pastor Jurgen preached a message on our sons and daughters will prophesy. And he said, I want you to prophesy right now on what you've been hoping for, what's on your heart. I said, I want a house. The Saturday a week later, so 9 days later, we put an offer in on this house. And it was just remarkable because we weren't shopping. We weren't really looking to buy.
It was the first house on the first weekend with our agent, and we walked in the door, and both of us were like, this is the house.
It was like as soon as we walked through the door of this house, I called this house the point, because it was like God's exclamation point. Yes, you're meant to be in San Diego. Yes, you're meant to have this house. And yes, you're meant to be planted at C3. It was almost the feeling, and I think both of us felt it, that if we didn't put an offer in on this house, we would have been being disobedient. We really feel like because this is God's house, it's not even the Runyon's house, that we are compelled to host connect groups and to invite people over for holidays and to have parties and to welcome people here, because we want this to not only be a home for our family, but a home for anybody at C3. And we've been very diligent about continuing to fulfill that Vision Builders pledge. And just last week, we wrote our last check. Boom. So we have fulfilled that Vision Builders pledge, and we have been so blessed since we've just really pressed in on that. And we would just encourage everybody to break through whatever fear or anxiety is holding you back around giving. We've almost become an Amazon culture of we want to track our package. We want to know exactly when it leaves the warehouse and if it's on its way and when is it coming to me. And that's not how God's economy works. You don't get to track your miracle. It's going to show up when it is least expected, and it may take longer than you think, but that doesn't mean that it's not on its way. And the other beautiful thing about God's economy is whatever it is that you ordered, it's coming in bigger and better than what you expected, because
So
He
true,
is
so
the God
true.
of miracles.
Before we got married, we were together 7 years.
Yeah, never came to church really, or we were in and out, not really.
It wasn't part of
all
our
in.
life.
When my mom and my dad migrated from Ecuador to Los Angeles, they came by themselves. So when I was born, one of the earliest memories of having my father in my life was him getting deported by the cops in front of me, and he never returned. So my mom raised me as a single mother with no help. It was really, really hard just to, be at a Christmas party and see everyone else with their family happy. And, by the time I hit 20 years old, she gets diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4. Within 3 months, she passes away and loses her battle to cancer. Drugs and alcohol became my family. So while I'm out partying, I meet my wife in LA, and she's from San Diego, so I said, hey, it'd probably be a good idea to leave this lifestyle.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and it just it got worse, really bad. After we had our daughter, he got more into drugs. So finally, I had to give him an ultimatum to either go get help, get into a program, or just leave.
So I chose rehab, and I'm glad I did.
Because deep down inside, I didn't want him to leave. I did want him to get help. My daughter was coming to my city and invited us to come to church. We came. Before we came into service, I told him, please don't embarrass me and don't tell anybody that you just came out of rehab.
So what do you think I said? I seen an old coworker and I said, hey, Mike, I just got out of rehab. And it was pretty cool because he welcomed me, and everyone here welcomed me. Never judged me, and it was
Ironically,
fun.
that same Sunday, we went into the response lounge after service, prayed on.
By Gary Johnson, and he told us about about a connect group with the Hartmans and the Tangs, and I was just like,
Okay. We'll go. We're gonna check it out.
We'll check it out. So we're going, and it's in Rancho Bernardo, and up in a big hill, and I'm driving up there, and I'm like, babe, man, I hope they don't think we're gonna steal something from their house. And I was like, wow, but that's just, I'm not used to
The mentality that.
Yeah, we didn't know anything else. I was just poverty and a nice house, and I was just feeling like I was gonna get judged, and that was just my way of thinking.
But nope, that's not how it was. They were welcoming, humble people, taught us how important it is to pray, be faithful, the importance of tithing and giving, and just all around caring people, the community.
Yeah. And we never had that type of community. So that was a game changer for us. I think that's the reason, besides
Today?
God, is the reason why we're actually here today. And I got my job from the first 30 seconds that I walked into C3. My old friend got me an interview, and now I'm a top producer there. And everyone at that company knows that when I get a sale, all glory goes to the sky. So
In May, we bought our first home. And never did I think that was gonna happen. Definitely not.
Yeah.
For us, no.
Yeah, if you would have told me a year ago that I would be sober and that I'd be buying my first home and breaking generational curse, because I'm the first one in my family to have land, I couldn't picture that.
Yeah.
And I could picture that, and I was picturing that the whole time that I'm at service and I'm at Connect Group and I'm talking to my leaders. And
So today we're currently serving here at C3. I serve in Kids Church. My daughter serves in Kids Church. Kayla also serves in Alliance.
I usher
Ushers.
So if you need any good seats, let me know. I have connections. And I'm also doing C3 Recovery as well, which is a huge part of my life, because without recovery and without God, who knows where I'd be. So I'm just excited to be part of that movement. So if anyone is struggling with addiction or any alcohol, come check out C3 Recovery.
This is very inspirational that God answered my prayers. It just makes me motivated to keep going, keep being faithful, keep being obedient.
So I'm just so glad that we walked into C3 a year and a half ago. I could only imagine what he has in store for us, because look what he's done with just a year and a half that we've given our God. Yeah, exactly.
Gone all in. We, being obedient, faithful, learning how to tithe, being in the community, just it's a blessing. And he's not even done with us yet. We still have a long way to go. We're just started.